Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today for Elsevier's Meet the Editor session. My name is Emma Ducker, and I am the very lucky publisher that gets to work alongside these wonderful editors-in-chief. So today, each of them will talk to you a little bit about their career to date. They'll share some advice that perhaps they wish they had known when they were just starting out in their careers, and then they'll each talk to you about the journal that they're responsible for. We would really welcome questions. We will have a live Q&A at the end, but anything that we don't get to, I will make sure is followed up personally, so please do ask away. With that, I'm going to leave you in their very capable hands and just say once again, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you find this session valuable, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of WBC. Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Hi all. First of all, I hope that you and your family and friends are well in these unprecedented times. My name is Dimitrios Zeugolis, and I'm here as Editor-in-Chief of Biomaterials and Biosystems, the newest title of Elsevier in Biomaterials portfolio. For the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'll talk to you about me. I'll give you some pieces of advice that may make your life easier, and of course, I'll talk to you about Biomaterials and Biosystems, the journal that I represent. Starting with myself, I did my bachelor's in animal production in the previous century, in the previous millennium actually. I started in 1995 and I finished in 1999 in Greece. In 1999 I moved to UK where I did my master's in food science and technology, specialized in connective tissue biology, and then my PhD in collagen-based biomaterials. In 2005, I moved to Singapore, where I did my postdoctoral training. I did my first postdoc in bioengineering and the second one in immunology. Early 2008, I moved to Ireland, first as a postdoctoral research scientist, and then a few months afterwards, in September 2008, I started my first academic appointment as an independent principal investigator. My group operates in 4 main areas. The number one is multifunctional biomaterials. The second one is we're trying to improve the advanced therapy medicinal products in a way of enhancing and accelerating extracellular matrix deposition without, however, using gene delivery vehicles. We're also developing extracellular matrix-based drug discovery models, as well as cellular agriculture products. The common denominator in all of these technologies is we are trying to understand how extracellular matrix is diseased and regenerates in order to provide functional therapies, to provide accurate and predictive drug discovery models, to create cell-based meat products for food security purposes. With respect to the pieces of advice that I have for you, I would recommend to get a pencil and a paper to keep some notes. These things may make life easier in the future. So I have divided them in 4 main categories. We'll start with health and safety. If you don't know what it is, don't drink it and certainly do not smell it. To put into perspective, if you know how osmium tetroxide smells, the chances are that's already too late. Don't wear sandals in the lab. Transferring conc HCl can be very dangerous. The thing with the lab coats is that they need to be buttoned up. Moving into experimental pieces of advice, use pencil on glass slides, not ink. An experiment is done when the figure is done and the data have been analyzed. Store the data in a server or a cloud. Computers tend to die faster than you expect. On how to improve your relationship with your supervisor, listen to older and more experienced people. The chances are that they have been there once or twice before you. That it hasn't been done before doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be the first to do it. Yes, it may be a great idea, but at the same time, it may be the worst. PIs do not print money in their offices, so stick to the allocated budget. And finishing with some general life-related piece of advice, if you want to make lots of money, you are clearly in the wrong business. Stay with the problem. This is what makes you a research scientist. Be prepared to be disappointed. Your papers will be rejected. Your grant proposal will also be rejected. That's fine. Smile, stand up, move on. This is what makes you better. Allocate time to think, to read a book or a newspaper, to see your friends and family, to go to a cinema or a concert. It's fine. Work will wait for you. It is only a job, yes, I recognize that, but it's a great one. You cannot do research if you just don't love it. I'll finish with the journal, the Biomaterials and Biosystems. As I said, we are the youngest journal into the Elsevier's biomaterials portfolio. We are an open access journal, which basically means that we align with all rules and regulations of funding agencies. And we differentiate from the other biomaterial journals within the Elsevier or other publishing houses that we are more focused on the cellular element, on the biological element. That's why we have the biosystems in our title. We have an exceptional editorial board member that we are covering every single aspect of the biomaterials development, cell therapies development, regenerative medicine. I'll finish with the financial issues. We have waived publication charges for 2020 and we are working to do so for 2021. So please visit our webpage for updates on this. We also have the most economic open access charge, and that is because we believe in open science and we believe in science for the scientists and for the public. With that, I would like to thank you for your time. I would like to wish to all of you and your families all the best for the upcoming festive period and the new year. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hello, I am Manuel Salmeron-Sanchez. I am a professor of biomedical engineering at the University of Glasgow, and I'm also editor-in-chief of Materials Science and Engineering Materials for biological applications. I'm going to talk a little bit about my background, my research, and also about the journal, about Material Science and Engineering and what makes this journal an interesting place and an exciting place to publish your research. So I am an engineer by training. I was trained in Valencia, in the Universitat Politécnica de Valencia, Technical University of Valencia, in a combination of mechanical and electrical engineering. It was a very long engineering program in the 90s. 6 years of training plus a final project. And then I did a PhD also in Valencia. During my PhD, I was attracted to the material science and with applications to biomaterials. So that was, I would say, the starting connecting point between my academic interest and biomaterials. So my PhD was on hydrogels, on understanding the physicochemical properties of hydrogels and how water interacts with polymer change and a very fundamental research trying to understand how different stages of water play a role in hydrogels. Hydrogels that, on the other hand, I knew that had applications as biomaterials, and I work on the very extended family of acrylates, and you know that polyhema, for example, has had a long tradition in the development of contact lenses and other types of applications, even in current research and in current practice. So after my PhD, which was very focused on practical aspects of hydrogels, I started paying more attention at the interface between materials, including hydrogels and cells. And I learned and I knew that the protein interfaces between materials and cells were important. And if we really wanted to understand how cells responded to materials, we first needed to understand how proteins absorb on surfaces. So I dedicated a few years to study with different techniques, and I did a lot of work in those days in using atomic force microscopy on how to look at the organization and the conformation of extracellular matrix proteins on polymers. At the same time, I continue having interest in hydrogels. I expanded my field of interest in biomaterials, and I started studying biodegradable materials. I did, after my PhD, a postdoctoral training in Prague, Institute for Macromolecular Chemistry in Prague. They had a long tradition of working on hydrogels. I was fortunate to work with Professor Ilavsky in Prague. And then I did a second postdoctoral training in Belgium, in Leuven, Catholic University of Leuven, where I work on fundamental properties of biodegradable materials and how, understanding crystallinity, we could actually control degradability. So my interest continue, and in polymers and protein interaction with polymers, and I slowly became more aware of biological problems and how understanding materials and materials properties could impact cell response and biological responses. And in all these years, I developed some sort of a group around understanding interfaces, and I found a phenomenon between fibronectin and one of the polymers that I used to work with during my PhD, is polyethyl acrylate. And these phenomena were actually very interesting, and it's a phenomenon that has taken us many years to understand. I would say that up to 10 years trying to understand why this phenomenon happened. But something that I did in the meanwhile was to use the phenomenon to engineer more materials and to use this practically in developing applications. So I think that once you find something interesting, immediately there are two lines of action that you can develop. One is, why does this happen? And that might take time and resources. And the other one is, can we make use of this for anything? And that's actually what we did. So based on this phenomena, we came to the conclusion that this self-organization of proteins on materials could be used for very efficient presentation of growth factors, molecules that are normally used in biological applications and clinical applications in very high concentration, very high doses. And we discovered and developed a technique, a methodology, a technology in which we could present growth factors very efficiently from the surface of materials. Thanks to these developments and to this research, I was awarded a ERC Consolidator grant, a grant from the European Research Council, to actually develop more materials and more ideas around this concept of solid phase presentation of growth factors for biomedical applications. I was, that was 2011, 2012, as when I was awarded my ERC grant. At the same time, I felt that I needed to expand a little bit my scientific horizons, that I have been a few years based in Valencia. I did, even if I had done postdoctoral training, and also just before being awarded my ERC grant, I spent a sabbatical year in Georgia Tech, working with Professor Andres Garcia, where it was a very important year for me to understand better how cells interact with materials, and particularly those materials that I had developed previously. So I felt that perhaps leaving Valencia was a right option in those times. That was almost 8 years ago. So I had a colleague in Glasgow and invite discussions. I visited the place, I understood better the scientific environment, and I thought that I really wanted to take on this opportunity to move my group to Glasgow in 2013. And since then, we have done a lot of things in Glasgow. We have developed more technologies. We have done translational research. We are running a clinical trial for veterinary medicine. We are planning a clinical trial for cell therapy in the future. We are working with companies to move our technologies to GMP manufacturing and doing more trials. And at the same time, we continue doing fundamental research, because to me, that's the kind of the background of what we do, and the important and fundamental aspects of what we do is that we want to really do high quality research that will lead in the future to impact and to deliver translational impact. So it's been quite a journey. Time has gone by very quickly, and it was a year ago that I took over as editor-in-chief of Material Science and Engineering C. It's a journal that is, I believe, very well considered in the scientific community. It's a big journal. Before talking about MSc a little bit more, I also want to think of what would I have done differently during my career, during all these years, or what sort of advice I would give to my younger self. And I believe that I think it's valid for regardless of which generation you belong to, but it's more valid even now. And I think people, especially young early career researchers, should be less metric focused. They should raise, and they should have the time to ask the right questions, and also they should have the time to answer these questions, the time and the resources. And many times this doesn't come with publishing a lot. It comes with publishing the right papers at the right time. Publishing good papers take time, so the advice that I would give to me, if I could, is that perhaps I should focus on publishing maybe less papers, papers which are more ambitious. I think that over the years, and the type of papers and the quality of the papers that I publish now are very different to the papers that I used to publish 10 years ago. But I think that with a little bit of mentorship, I could have done things differently. So talking about the journal, about Material Science and Engineering C, it's a big journal, as you know. We receive more than 4,000 papers per year. We publish less than 1,000 papers per year, so the rejection rate is significantly high. We are a journal focused on biomedical applications. So we want to see papers which have both aspects of the field. So we want to see material science, and we want to see demonstration of that new novel material science in biological applications. That means that we don't publish papers which contain just development of materials, and vice versa. We don't publish papers which contain just biology. I think there are other types of journals which are very well receptive to this type of papers. So our journal is truly multidisciplinary. We want papers containing both types of disciplines. The journal has the aspiration to be a top journal in the field of biomaterials. We belong to the broad family of biomaterials in biomaterials journals in Elsevier. We don't want to compare ourselves with other journals in the family, like Biomaterials or Materials Today Bio or Acta Biomaterialia. I think we all play different roles, and we all have the possibility to work together to make the field of biomaterials attractive and strong. in the scientific community. I think we can all contribute, all these journals can all contribute to have a better field, a more attractive, a more exciting, more robust, in essence, a solid and well-developed field of biomaterials. Something that we have put emphasis since I took over as editor-in-chief is to reinvigorate our editorial team. We have recruited since over the last 10 months a few new editors, and these are my colleagues Matt Dalby from Glasgow, Amaya Sipitria, who is in the Max Planck Institute in Potsdam, Nicholas Dunn in Dublin, who is also one of the chairs, of the co-chairs of the World Biomaterials Conference, and also Yang Gao from China. And together with the previous editors that we had in the journal, I believe that we are going to increase the quality of the journal in terms of the quality of the papers that we published, and also the time since submission to publication with good reviewers' feedback. That is always one of the expectations and one of the big challenges that we have to contribute to make the work of our authors better, regardless of whether the paper is published in the end in MSc or not. So some very basic advice for our authors is that most of our rejections happen before the paper is going out to review. And what to do to write a good paper. I think this is general advice for every journal, but in particular for MSc, I think you want to be sure that your cover letter is very good, that your cover letter contains why your research is important, why it's a good fit for the journal, and why it's a piece of research that deserves publication in a high quality biomaterials journal. It's very important the way you write your abstract. Your abstract should be written for the general community of biomaterial science. So it's important to avoid acronyms in the abstract. It's important not to go into a lot of technical details in your abstract, but we want your abstract to tell the best about your paper and why your paper is exciting, why your paper is novel. It's essential that you actually pay a lot of attention and time to the quality of your figures. We want to see high quality figures, which we can understand just by reading the caption to that figure. Ideally, we want to be able to go through the paper just by looking at the figures and reading the caption to the figures. When one should be able to have a good feeling of what this paper is about. And finally, I would ask authors to pay attention to references. Which are the references that you want to include, because by looking at the papers that you cite, I think we can get a feeling of what's the quality and which are the contents of your paper, and whether this is a good fit or not for material science and engineering C. We have plans for the journal. We are an ambitious team. We want the best for material science and engineering C. We want to increase the quality of the papers that we publish. Necessarily, this doesn't mean that we want to that our own and only metric is going to be the impact factor, but it's essentially one important metric that we have now. So we want to be sure also that the quality of the papers that we publish has a reflection in the impact factor of the journal. So we are well located within the field, within the area of biomaterial science. Thank you very much. I hope you are enjoying the World Biomaterials Conference, and we look forward to receiving your manuscripts. Any question that you may have about the journal, I'll be very happy to answer them now during the Q&A session, but also please feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to help as much as I can. Thank you.
Hello, I'm William Wagner. I'm the editor-in-chief for the journal Acta Biomaterialia. I'd like to give you a little bit about my background and some unsolicited career advice, and then tell you a little bit about the journal. So first of all, in terms of my background, I'm at the University of Pittsburgh, where I'm a distinguished professor of surgery, bioengineering, and chemical engineering. I came to the University of Pittsburgh in 1991 after finishing my PhD at the University of Texas in chemical engineering under the advisement of Professor Jeff Hubble. Before that, I received a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from Johns Hopkins University. So currently I am the director of the McGowan Institute for Regenerative Medicine. The McGowan Institute for Regenerative Medicine is focused on developing technologies that address organ and tissue failure. And we don't consider our mission successful if those technologies do not actually get to patients. So there's a large emphasis on commercialization and clinical trials. In terms of commercialization, we've successfully spun out 35 companies over the years. I've been the director of the Institute since 2011, and the Institute has approximately 250 faculty members, primarily at the University of Pittsburgh, across both the health sciences, engineering, and basic sciences departments. For my own research, I focus on cardiovascular devices and cardiovascular biomaterials and tissue engineering. In terms of devices, my group is interested in blood biocompatibility primarily, particularly thrombosis and thromboembolism. Why do patients have strokes when they get mechanical circulatory support devices? That was one of the first questions that I sought to address when I came to Pittsburgh in 1991. The problem has gotten better, but it still remains a problem for many devices. Another area that we work in, as I mentioned, is cardiovascular biomaterials, and our emphasis there is on biodegradable elastomers and also thermal responsive hydrogels. Most of the applications that we're interested in have to do with the heart or the vasculature, although we have other projects in other soft tissues. So more broadly, one could say that we're interested in soft tissue biomaterials. The research in my group is very much focused on addressing specific clinical problems or clinical needs. So one of the markers for success, as with any research group, is of course we seek to publish research findings, but another important aspect is the generation of intellectual property. And furthermore, the transfer of that intellectual property out to commercial entities that can take it forward to the clinic. So to date, we have over 35 issued patents that have come from research in the group. And we've spun out 2 companies so far. In terms of other aspects of my career, I think at this stage an important aspect is various leadership roles. I mentioned the McGowan Institute, that I spend a lot of my time in administration and the directorship of that. I've also been involved with society leadership. I'm a former president of the American Society for Artificial Internal Organs, or ASIO. I'm also the former chairman of the TERMIS, or Tissue Engineering Regenerative Medicine International Society Americas Council. I've also had a leadership role, been part of the leadership team for various consortia that have focused on military regenerative medicine, craniofacial regenerative medicine, pediatric medical device development, degradable metals, among others. Another aspect of that leadership is fellowship status with a number of the leading societies. I'm a fellow of the International Union of Societies for Biomaterial Science and Engineering, IUSBSE. Also a fellow of the AIMBE, American Institute for Medical and Biological Engineering, American Heart Association, Biomedical Engineering Society, and TERMIS. Also, most recently, I'm happy to say that with a great team of new editors, we've completed the 4th edition of the very popular Biomaterial Science textbook. This was its 4th edition. As I said, the previous 3 editions were expertly led by Buddy Ratner and colleagues, and it was quite the joy to take that over and to see that through to publication. And as I said, that just came out recently, and it's also published by Elsevier. Unsolicited career advice. I'll try to be brief. Number one, I would say, do not follow pack science. What do I mean by pack science? Following the pack. By the time a funding agency has digested enough of a research trend to put out a request for applications or a request for proposals where they say, we want to have funding proposals on this topic, it's probably pretty late in the game, and there's a lot of other groups that have probably been behind talking to that agency to get that request to come out. So it's not a great idea as a young faculty member to follow that pack. Instead, it's better to look at your surroundings in terms of people and in terms of unique resources and say, where do I have unique advantages to address specific questions? Even more importantly, from my unique vantage point with my unique environment of collaborators or potential collaborators, what problems do we identify that are not being adequately addressed? For instance, when I came to Pittsburgh and became part of the artificial heart program, it was glaringly obvious that there was this problem with strokes in patients that had artificial hearts. Furthermore, we were in a unique position of having a very large patient population which we could study that particular problem and gain insights that would have been much harder to do if I was in another location that didn't have that large clinical program. So in my career, it's always been advantageous to look at the clinical experts and potential partners to learn from them and to understand the clinical problems that might be able to address with my research group's expertise in biomaterials. Second, or maybe third piece of advice, and this is with respect to leadership and with respect to taking on a leadership role within the research community, directing an institute or a center, or more broadly within a university setting or business setting for that matter. And it's pretty broad and it's pretty simple, but it is learn your humanities. As scientists, as engineers, we have to take a rigorous undergraduate course load that often doesn't leave much room for going in any reasonable depth into the humanities, into history, into literature, into the arts. And I would recommend in your career that you take time for non-technical reading. Read the classics. Read, Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle is a wonderful text. And the writings about that text, it's very influential. And it's a bit abstract, but you deal with those kind of situations more frequently in a leadership role because you're now in a position of talking with people that don't have technical backgrounds. But you have to answer the question, why is what you're doing important for society, and how does it fit into broader societal objectives? And that's where understanding where people with different educational backgrounds, but a common sense of the humanities is a strength and can be definitely, I wouldn't say used to your advantage, but give you a better perspective and a better means for communication with stakeholders. Stakeholders that may benefit you, stakeholders that you're trying to benefit by your actions. So, about the journal Acta Biomaterialia. Acta Biomaterialia was founded in 2004, and we started publishing in 2005. I've been honored, frankly, to be the editor-in-chief over its lifespan. When we started the journal, I was one of a number of candidates who interviewed for the position, and one of the things we were asked to do is give the vision for what the journal would become, what its mission would be. And it was clear to me at that time in 2004 that there was a clear need for a journal that focused on the material science aspects of biomaterials. And Acta Biomaterialia was ideally suited to fill this void in that its lineage was from Acta Materialia, which back in early 1950s when it was founded, was Acta Metallurgica, arguably the first material science journal to enter the scene. So the sister journals, Acta Materialia and Scripta Materialia, had a long and distinguished record, and this organization, this nonprofit organization, Acta Materialia Incorporated, sought to enter into the biomaterials field. So long story short, we scoped the mission very much in the structure, function, property relationships, material science fundamentals for biomaterials. And that's been the guiding star for Acta Biomaterialia since it was founded. A number of things about Acta Biomaterialia a lot of people don't know. One is that we are, as I said, owned by a nonprofit. The nonprofit is Acta Materialia, which is supported and represented by leadership from leading material science and biomaterial science societies around the world. They have board positions on the governing board for Acta Materialia. It publishes with Elsevier, but it is a unique nonprofit entity that runs the journal. So what does Acta Materialia do with the income that comes in? Well, they turn it back into the community. So many of you may know of the medals. So we introduced in 2008 the Acta Biomaterialia Gold Medal. It's been given out every year since then. And in 2020, the awardee is Cato Lorenzen, who we're happy to see get that honor, a very well-deserved honor from him. And each honoree has the opportunity to select a meeting anywhere in the world that they would like to be presented with the medal. So it's a unique aspect, and I think a fun thing for the awardees to be able to select and craft the nature of their award presentation and reception. Several years ago, we also introduced the silver medal, Acta Biomaterialia Silver Medal, and this was meant for a mid-career scientist engineer. And that now has been awarded several years, and I would encourage you, if you're not familiar with these medals, but know of candidates or would like to see someone nominated, nominations are due at the end of each year. Another thing that we do is we have student awards. So these are for student status individuals who have published with the journal Acta Biomaterialia in the past year, and we give out 4 of these awards, and again, there's a financial aspect to it and also an award presented at a material science meeting. We do that each year. Another thing that we do not publicize as much is our referee awards. So the journal is very much dependent upon excellent referees, and we recognize in the journal the top 20, what we consider to be the top 20 reviewers for a given year, and they receive a notice of award and a small financial award as well. One of the objectives, the objective of Acta Biomaterialia is to provide excellent service to the biomaterials community and to champion material science approaches in biomaterials research and development. So in terms of that service, our objective is to be publishing the most impactful manuscripts, the most insightful review articles, and we will always seek to have that imprimatur of high quality associated with the journal. So as the journal has risen in impact, continues to rise in impact, we're challenged with large numbers of submission. It's exactly what we want to have. We want to have everyone submitting their strongest work to the journal. Unfortunately, we can't review all of those papers, so we have a 2-tier review process, as many journals nowadays do, where we will do a first cut with the editors and then send the ones that make that cut out for review. And we have a very strong commitment to 2 things. One is getting your review back quickly to you, and getting back a quality review to you, not just a couple of sentences here and there, but actually useful, constructive criticism reviews. And the notion is that even with the manuscripts that we're rejecting, that those rejections will come with comments. Obviously not everything is going to be taken appropriately and may not even be delivered appropriately, but by and large, we want our authors to appreciate the review process that it's trying to strengthen, strengthen the manuscript. So quick reviews, quality reviews is something that we're constantly seeking to do and to get back to the authors. So if you've published in Acta Biomaterialia, and I hope you have, sincere thank you. If you've reviewed for us, another very sincere thank you. It's both of those processes which are the lifeblood of the journal and its success, and we very much appreciate your efforts on behalf of the journal. If you have not, I would encourage you to consider sending your research manuscript or insightful review article to the journal. We'd be happy to receive it. And thank you for the time and listening. And I'm very much looking forward to the opportunity to actually meet more people face to face. Travel has certainly been curtailed in the past year, and I'm looking forward to getting back out on the road, meeting with authors and referees, and frankly, hearing your blunt feedback, good and bad. I very much appreciate it. If you want to drop an email with opinions, many of you have, I'm happy to receive those in our offices. I should also mention Sarah Halshorn is our special content editor. She joined in the past year, and she's reached out to a number of you in terms of soliciting and reviewing special content. We're delighted to have her on board. She's at Stanford University. And then Mark Bonner, who's been with the journal for many years as editor with an emphasis in the orthopedic and ceramic and metal area. And Mark has done a terrific job over the years and is a very important part of our team. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for your support of Acta Biomaterialia, and I hope you have a good conference.
Hello, my name is João Mano, and I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Materials Today Bio. I've been asked to speak briefly about my career and about the journal. Since my childhood, I have been fascinated by science, all aspects of science, from geology, biology, chemistry and physics, astronomy, mathematics, and also all engineering fields. At the moment of entering to the university, the call was to follow a degree with a strong scientific component, but interfacing with engineering and technologies. After graduating in chemical engineering in Lisbon, I was unable to refuse the invitations from my best professor to continue with a PhD that was related with the study of the molecular dynamics of liquid crystalline polymers using dielectric spectroscopy methods. The strong physical chemistry and material science flavors of my PhD project was very important to start to work with the development and characterization of new polymeric materials when I was hired as an assistant professor at University of Minho. I had the chance to start to work with materials that could be used in the biomedical field. Although having ambitious practical motivations, in particular to increase the quality of life of patients, my research was being founded by solid scientific basis. For that, I needed to work much more on biological related fields and to deepen the knowledge on fundamental aspects of biomaterials. During my career, I have been very interested in developing unconventional soft matter-based systems to be employed in biomedicine, including stimuli-responsive systems, bio-inspired materials to be used in a variety of biomedical applications, and nanobiomaterials, not only nanoparticles, but also two-dimensional multilayers from natural polymers and bioactive nanocomposites, specially aimed at being used in regenerative and personalized medicine. In 2016, following my moving to University of Aveiro in Portugal, where I am now a full professor of biotechnology at the Department of Chemistry, I was able to settle a completely new group composed by fantastic researchers, seeking every day for highly innovative and creative ideas in the area of biomaterials for tissue engineering and regenerative medicine or drug delivery, and also in the general areas of biomimetic materials and surfaces, soft matter, unusual nano to macro processing, and nanobiomaterials engineering from 0D to 3D. The type and variety of such topics that I have been exploring in the last years are right in the spirit of Materials Today Bio, the journal that I have the pleasure to represent as editor-in-chief. The scope of Materials Today Bio embraces the entire breadth of topics at the interface between biology and material science, chemistry, physics, engineering, and medicine. In the last few years, we have been observing tremendous progress in all bio-related areas, from basic molecular and cellular aspects, such as gene editing, synthetic biology, and stem cell biology, up to very applied areas, such as tissue or genetic engineering, bioelectronics, and nanobiotechnology. The employment of materials has been omnipresent in such developments. For example, the design of novel structures from the molecular to the macro scale and their integration with biological systems has been an essential focus in scaling the applications of materials in bioimaging, therapies, or diagnostics. On another angle, the observation and understanding of biological mechanisms and solutions that nature has adopted has enabled the significant growth of more performant and multifunctional materials. Bioinspiration and the replication of natural processes has remarkable potential to produce advanced smart and bioinstructive surfaces, devices with extreme and adaptive properties, and synthetic microenvironments with highly tuned interactions with cells, microorganisms, and living tissues. This diversity of aspects covered by Materials Today Bio will be also adequate for enriching the publishing experience of multifaceted authors that really wish to explore different scientific perspectives and approaches. I truly believe that with this vision, we will be able to continue attracting highly innovative works while maintaining scientific excellency. Our strong international editorial board both reflects the multidisciplinary nature of the journal and helps to maintain the high scientific standards, a fingerprint of the journals from the Materials Today family. In my editorial practice, I am also committed in implementing inclusive publication practices, where contributors are treated regardless of their gender, geographical, racial, or ethnic background. I invite all of you to follow the appearing publications, all available in open access, and to consider to publish your research articles, short communications, and reviews in Materials Today Bio. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Kam Leong from the Department of Biomedical Engineering and Department of Systems Biology at Columbia University. My formal training was in chemical engineering, did my PhD thesis in polymer chemistry, and then was fascinated by the emerging field of drug delivery at that time. That was in the 1980s. That's when I started my biomaterials research career. So in drug and gene delivery, for the past 35 years, we have been applying the control release principles to the delivery of chemotherapeutics, DNA-based therapeutics, and cells via polymeric biomaterials. We also work on regenerative medicine. We design biodegradable 3D scaffolds for tissue engineering, incorporate drug delivery functions into these scaffolds, and optimize the culture microenvironment and the delivery of biochemical, mechanical, and topographical cues to improve the reprogramming of human cells for cell therapy. This I have done first at Johns Hopkins University for almost 20 years. Then I continued the research at Duke University for 8 years. Then in 2014, I moved to Colombia. So the three major research directions ongoing in the lab are non-viral gene editing in vivo, modulation of inflammation by biomaterials, and the generation of human tissues on a chip for disease modeling and drug screening. I've been very fortunate over the years in working with wonderful students and postdoctoral fellows, and also working with great collaborators. It has been a very gratifying journey. I took over the Biomaterials Journal in 2014 as the editor-in-chief. It was a growing field at that time, as it is now. The use of biomaterials is ubiquitous in our body, ranging from all kinds of implants to drug delivery devices. It has an enormous impact on the healthcare of the society. For example, we hear so much about the COVID mRNA vaccines right now. Lipid nanoparticles play a major role in the development of these mRNA vaccines. I see the role of biomaterials evolving from being passive, supportive, to being more active, therapeutic, and multifunctional. For example, a carrier may not only provide a control release function, but may itself also be therapeutic. Or the carrier for antigen delivery in vaccination may also stimulate an immune response. Or the scaffold in regenerative medicine can also have an influence on the differentiation of stem cells. I also see the field of biomaterials becoming more multidisciplinary. For example, the marriage of biomaterials and electronics are producing implantable bioelectronic devices with exciting sensing and delivery applications. Another example is the incorporation of data science and machine learning concepts, such as deep learning techniques to analyze complex microvasculature in vitro and in vivo, or the use of computational techniques to study omics data at the single cell level. This kind of approach is already advancing the biomaterials field in a new dimension. There is a lot of exciting work going on in the field. I hope our journal can be a fitting forum for researchers to publish some of their best work. Let me talk a little bit about the journal. The scope of our journal is very broad because the field of biomaterials is broad. To cover such breadth, we have a board of editors with diverse expertise handling the submissions. There are 13 of us, roughly 50-50 distributed between Asia and North America and Europe. That is also roughly the proportion of papers published from these two regions. We are all active researchers. We are also authors. We know the pain of rejection. We know the frustration of a long decision process. We can only do our best. Most of the times we try to get 3 quality reviews, and that is often the source of delay. Like any other good journal, we value innovation, but impact is more important to us, although these two elements go hand in hand most of the time. There is a slight misconception out there that biomaterials will heavily favor work with in vivo data. Now, certain studies do require in vivo validation. For example, the merits of a new drug and gene delivery system can only be demonstrated in vivo. For that kind of work, there must be animal data. But about 45% of our papers were published without any in vivo data in the past few years. We do favor mechanistic understanding in the studies, but that is not a requirement. We are also publishing more review manuscripts now. Used to be under 5% in the past, but it's likely to be in the 8 to 10% in the near future. So biomaterials is a growing and exciting field. There is so much science to be done. We very much welcome your submission, and we also welcome your suggestions and feedback. Thank you.